welcome to discussions of music, healing, and consciousness with your hosts, Chris Noble and Bill Perotzman. On this podcast, Chris and I offer a spontaneous, ongoing conversation about how music is intertwined with healing and consciousness. Our first season helped lay the foundation and build some of the superstructure for what we want to do here in Season 2, where we'll be welcoming some intriguing guests, going deeper into ancient mysteries and wisdom, and cultivating your background knowledge and curiosity. We hope these discussions will inspire your own study and practice of the musical and healing arts, and that your contribution to advancing world consciousness will be satisfying for you and transformative to those around you. Let's get started. I wanted to get you guys together because of what you'll see coming up.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. And Shophar, it's already a pleasure. I'm just looking at your background, and I love the ankh that you're wearing. That's beautiful.
I thought that would resonate.
Oh yeah, first thing I saw. Thing I was just reading this morning. I love young adult fiction. I'm reading a book on ancient Egyptian magicians. They're these kids that wake up and discover that they have an ancient bloodline from Egypt, and so it's all like fun fiction, but it's encoded in it. It's all the magic from ancient Egypt. And briefly, I guess to summarize it quickly, I'm starting to do now with my music, I'm incorporating breath work and meditation into the music, but kind of dripping it in more mainstream settings, like at a rock festival or a folk festival. And people are very receptive. It's getting more popular and more in the collective consciousness, which is really exciting. And I was supposed to go back to Egypt in September, but didn't line up. Things just weren't meant to be on that trip, so I didn't end up going. But I'm excited to go back and also incorporate more music and sound. So it's kind of the mission I'm on right now, is just incorporating more music and sound into all these other modalities and seeing how they all kind of complement each other. So how about yourself, Shophar? I mean, that's what kind of work do you do? Bill gave me a very brief summary, but I'd love to hear more.
Very brief, very small.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, Chris, I think that's definitely fascinating stuff and much needed, like you said, especially in the festival circuit and just any place where people congregate. And they're open and receptive to other modes. I think is really great that you're able to work in something as fundamental as breathing, breath work. I feel like that is the thing that can transcend religion and all these, all the different isms the ways that we paint ourselves into corners. Let's just get back to the breath. It's very simple. So I love that. And I'm glad you're doing that work. And same for myself. I've been doing Qigong since 2002. It started as my own journey, and it spoke to me in such a way and helped me heal different things. And I felt like, aided my evolution to the point where, I started to share it with other people eventually. And one of the things that I hone in on is with my lady and me, we also do it with intimacy, so with couples and getting breath work so that we call it S.E.X, Central Emotional Exchange. So if we can get sex to be more than just genitals meeting, but so also factor in the emotional component, and the X factor is the breath with our awareness. So that's kind of my angle with it.
Chris, when we were talking, I don't know, a couple episodes ago now, can't remember. So maybe we should set this up a little bit. So talk to us one more time, just quickly, about the working run that you did with your business partner.
Yeah, right. So one of my business partners, we're working on these men's groups that are helping men and anyone who identifies with the masculine energy, obviously. And it's obviously, these teachings are open to anyone, but we are focusing on men and trying to encourage more men to come into these ancient healing modalities, because they're not alternative, really, from my opinion. Like everyone used to do these, we just forgot and lost them, so we're remembering them. And anyway, long story short, I'm doing these, kind of just found myself starting to do more of these men's groups with other friends of mine who have been doing them a lot longer, and so I'm collaborating and bringing my music and stuff into it, but I'm also still new to these things. And with these men's workshops, the big twist we do on all these ancient practices is that we also do them naked. And at first that sounds, whoa, that's crazy, because that's how we're programmed in this day and age. But like your like the work that you're doing with your partner, Shophar, it's similar that it's like we need to incorporate the sexual component because that's one of the, if not the most pinched off area in our, at least Western society, but most societies around this planet now, we're so pinched off sexually, and the healing that can come from sexual healing is unbelievably profound and deep on ways that you just can't possibly know because it's mostly subconscious already or just beneath the surface. So the healing that that comes through this work is just amazing, and I love that you're incorporating that. So that's amazing right off the bat. And then so this working run situation that Bill's referring to was we were basically brainstorming for the next workshop. Like, okay, what do we want to incorporate? What do we want to bring in? And my buddy's like, well, how about I just run up to your area, which is not close. It's like at least a 45-minute one-way run for him. And then he's like, I'll run up to you and then we'll go for a run together. We'll go to this little lake that's in Vancouver here. And then we'll sit and we'll brainstorm some more. So anyway, we ended up going on this run, which was fun, just a 5K, but we ran out, got the exercise. We're kind of chit-chatting on the run, getting ideas flowing, get to the lake, sit, do some breath work together, taking in the sun, the vitamin D, by the water, ducks, birds doing all their things. Beautiful. It's peaceful. More ideas, just boom, boom, boom. Downloads just started coming in like crazy for us. We ended up just recording a lot of it, writing a lot of it down, pretty much put together multiple workshops all in that one meeting. And we haven't needed one since because it was so productive. So, and then at the end of it, we're both leaving, going back to our respective houses, like high on, prana energy, life force energy, high on connection, brotherhood, camaraderie, connection, collaboration, and you're just leaving feeling amazing. And you're like, holy crap, hold on a second. Did I just get more work done to a higher quality? And it was fun, and it was really fun, and it felt healthy. Like I just got my workout in too. I mean, you're just knocking off all these things. And I think that's kind of like the world we're moving into more now, is also like, why can't it be fun? Why can't it be all those things? And yeah, it was just a cool experience at the end of it all.
I love that. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
It's no mistake that Shophar and I met at a men's group.
Oh, awesome. There you go.
And I don't know, you guys probably felt this too. There's a need.
Yeah.
Like the traditional men's rap group, you sit around and you tell about, all your trouble. That's morphed. That's changed. And I love where it's going. Chris, your story is profound on this. And Shophar, as much as I've been able to, I've attended what's gone on at Freshly Faded. We meet in a barbershop, Chris.
Really?
Yeah. It's the kind of place where you would go and hang out. Forget about your hair, just go and hang out, right? Because the conversations are they're that great. Black-owned barbershop. Derek Banks has done amazing. Plug here, Freshly Faded, for everybody who's in San Diego near North Park. This is your shop.
Check it out.
Check it out. Freshlyfaded.com. Book online. Because they'll take walk-ins, but you might be sitting there for a while and you might enjoy it, because while you're sitting there, you hear some really amazing conversations. So where was I going with that? Oh, we met in a men's group. And do men's groups need to morph? They need to change to sort of catch the new place that we're in. And, I got to obviously state what's going on here. Straight white guys, we got nothing, man. There's groups for every kind of cat in the world. So the embrace that needs to come to bring guys who look like me and don't think quite like me yet, we need to catch them and bring them in a way that allows us to be male, to have that male energy, but in a way that is not patriarchal. Is that a good way of saying it? You guys getting that?
Resonates.
Yeah.
And I just have this feeling, it's going to be Chris, it's going to be you, it's going to Shophar, it's going to be you. You're the guys who's going to lead this next generation in that way. And I can be a part of that, being the old guy in the room, but I can be a part of that to say, hey, this is working for me. This is crossing generations. This is helping to create connections where there weren't any. So there's our conversation for the morning. How's that sound for you, Shophar?
I love it. I love where you took that, and Chris, what you were sharing about the men's group, and just the camaraderie and how it takes you to another level. And that's what I've gotten from men's groups as well. I've been very thankful for it, and shout out to Derek Banks, who's the owner of the barbershop where we meet at. Shout out to Ignatius and also Eric Rios, who's no longer with us. He transitioned last summer. He transitioned and expanded. He was a young guy too, only 32, 33 years old. And but those were the four of us were kind of the founders of this current men's group. And it's been very healing. And I agree so much, Bill, with what you're saying, that my lady and me, we have a program that we do called Healing Us, and in there we have an acronym called racism, and it's an acronym. It's the R is for racism, the A is for ableism and ageism, the C is for classism, the I is for intellectualism, the S is for sexism, and the M is for materialism. And in that, we feel like, what is the work that each one of us have to do with our own isms, not in somebody else? Where do I show up with these isms in me? And that's one of the things that I get from the men's work is looking at these things.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Eric. I had the privilege of sitting with him a couple of times, and great individual. I've been so blessed. I guess I've just been part of some really good groups, but I've been so blessed, Yeah,
I love that acronym, by the way. Sorry, just to jump in there.
Yeah, isn't that great?
It's so needed, just dropping these isms. I was just literally talking this morning. It's so synchronistic, Shophar, what you're bringing up, because I really feel that labels and categorization in general, like language, the kind of traps that traditional English, at the very least, in language, Western language, it traps us into that materialism paradigm and that specific way of viewing reality as separation versus everything being connected at one, and everything being a reflection of yourself and source and God, or whatever you want to call it. And so just the language that we use to like, well, you're this and that's that, already is part of that problem of we're now dividing from the core connection of that we're all the same consciousness, we're all love, essentially, just in different embodiments of that. And so, yeah, like when we throw in, I love how you can take all that and be like, okay, great, all these isms, great, we got that here. Now, can we move beyond that, right? And just kind of start to be able to connect on a more heart-based level, less of the mind, because the mind loves to analyze and boom, 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 categorize. This is going to fall into that category. That the mind loves that, but we're moving into this new age, the Aquarian age, right? Of leading with the heart, and I think that's exciting, and that's where this men's work, I think, is really going in that direction now, right?
So yes. I've been wondering about this really profoundly. Obviously, the toxic masculinity and the stuff that you hear about guys. What kind of effort is involved in learning how to change your fundamental stuff? Mm. Like, if you're a narcissistic, toxic leader that even has respect, what can be done there? I mean, how do you break that open? Shophar, how do you get into that in a way that can transform it? And that's sort of been my big question here, because there's so much of it, and it can be overwhelming.
I feel you. I think in these moments is to be able to, as we, I know all of you and probably many of the listeners may agree with the whole idea of witnessing and knowing where our different thoughts and feelings are coming from, and being able to sit back and I have two other sets of anybody who knows me, they know I like acronyms. So it either comes from ego, and the ego for me is like evil going on if you don't check it, or is edging good out. You've probably heard that one before. Or it's ego, and it's that part of us that is evolution going on. Many times when we have knee-jerk responses and everything, it's the other. And so whether it be those isms that we talked about, or the quote unquote toxic masculinity or wounded masculinity, however we want to put it, a lot of times it's coming to be able to start that process. And what I use, the tool that's been speaking to me for a long time, is the ancient Kemetic or ancient Egyptian tree of life, the Paut Neteru. And so that lets me know like which part of myself is the one right now that's kind of out of harmony.
Help me out a bit because Chris is nodding and he knows, but I don't. So help me on the tree of life a bit, you guys.
Got you. So, and definitely, I'll throw you an alley oop, Chris, for you to chime in too. But the Paut Neteru, as far as what I learned, is kind of like the Egyptian or ancient Kemetic version of the Kabbalah or Tree of Life.
Oh, okay.
You have different systems, and the idea there is that we have these different parts of ourselves. You can think of them as organs, but each one has a different way of expressing itself as far as consciousness, emotions, so on and so forth.
I'm reading you on this. I was thinking of the acupuncture pressure points, the acupuncture meridians.
Those tie into it, like so I also study traditional Chinese medicine, and so seeing those where those two link, like saying the liver might be the energy of what the ancient people of Kemet, or what we today call Egypt, would have called the Herukati, or the Herukati energy, or Horus is what the Greeks translated that name into. So in other words, it's that part, that very martial part of our being, right? So in our bodies, and I like to think of the tree of life as really being our awareness system, not our nervous system, but our awareness system.
I love that. So cracking open a male who needs it. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Breaking through the shell that is that prevents us from getting to the true male energy. Does it have to take great trauma or some, crazy experience to do that? I'm including psychedelics in that, or is there another way in on that kind of to open up that potential?
I've got one quick little thing I'll throw in there, and Shophar, thanks for sharing all that, because I just went to ancient Egypt land, from especially that you're referring it to as Kemet, right, which is the ancient name for Egypt, well before it was called Egypt. And anyway, one of my friends that I'm doing these workshops with, he always talks about, he likes to say the 3 S's that help specifically with men to kind of bypass what you're talking about, Bill, to be able to maybe not shortcut, because that mentality isn't, you want to cultivate patience. And, I don't think this idea, like we love the quick fix, idea in the Western world, but
pill poppers.
And at the same time, there are things that can get you these places quicker, and why not learn some of them, right? So one of the S's that my friend uses is superfoods. So really looking into what's going into your body on a very basic level. So like examining all the food you're ingesting, anything that's going into you. And actually recently, and this is a bit of a tangent, but oh my God, water. I've just been going into some deep dives into the consciousness of water, the power of water, philosophically, scientifically, and all this other stuff. Just the fact that pretty much statistically speaking, the whole world is dehydrated consistently. Not because we're not necessarily drinking enough, but it's the quality of the water and the consciousness of the water. Tap water is basically dead. Spring water is vibrant and alive. And everything else kind of, there's in-betweens of that. So superfoods can extend out to even like, what kind of water are you taking in? If we're 70% water, molecularly speaking, we're 99% water. That plays a part. So the food going into your body, the things going in, can be a pretty big help right off the bat. The other S is sexual transmutation, sexual healing. That's a massive area for anyone, but especially for men, especially because there's just been not many avenues or platforms that guys can talk about any type of trauma. And trauma does not have to be dramatic. It can be just these conditions and stories we've learned through pop culture or through family or through whatever, that like later down the road are really starting to eat away at us. And again, we might not even know it, but doing some of these sexual transmutation exercises like Tantra that you're talking about, Shophar, and Tantric teachings, looking into the whole idea of sexual alchemy and what does that mean, like using your sexual energy instead of it being a lusty energy, like can you convert that into creative energy, which is what sexual energy is ultimately. So you got the transmutation of it, and then the other is like there's like somatic movement-based energy. So yoga, exercise, typical sports, things like that are so good for men, especially because of just the way our bodies are designed with testosterone and other things like that, just our masculine energy go really well with activity, and things like dance, incorporating sound and movement all together, things like that can really fast track, I would say, because I'll just speak because that's what worked for me. And that's what fast tracked a lot of my healing and spiritual development there. So I would love to hear Shophar, like what, if you've got any, I'll alley oop over to you there.
Well, you slam dunked it, and I definitely, I agree with the three S's. I love that. And, I was just talking to a buddy yesterday. Matter of fact, the men's group, we meet the first Wednesday of each month. And then that first Sunday after that, we do Cowles Mountain hike together. And so I was talking to one of the brothers there, and we were talking about how, we need to continue to have, meetings where people, because, most of it, a lot of us we know, and it's really just talking about sharing notes.
Right. Preaching to the choir.
Yeah. Because all of y'all know, and you may say it different than me, but And so I think ancient indigenous cultures from around the world, they're saying the same things, just different ways. So I love Chris, the three S's, and my way of saying it is like going back again to ancient Kemet. I love they had the seven hermetic principles, or the seven principles of thought, and one of them is that everything vibrates. So I have an acronym for that, vibe, VIBE, and the V is for voice, or for using sound, like your sound healing that you're doing, that you and Bill are doing, and then the I is for introspecting, looking inward. That can be the process of meditation, or through the ancient people of China, Qigong, using your mind to move energy in your body. The B is for breath. And then the E is for embodiment. So like you said, Chris, superfoods and yoga and all these different branches of things. So vibe, voice, introspection, breath, and embodiment.
So, hey, we get a chance. Let's do this. Pretend we're going to do this virtually. We get a chance to sit down with Vladdy Putin right now. What do you say to a guy like that?
Who did you say? Did you say Putin?
Yeah, Vladimir Putin. Let's just pretend he's in the room. Well, what would you say? I mean, I'm asking this question because I'm not sure what I would say. Respected world leader who's kind of gone off the rails and likes to kill people and hurt things.
Right.
What do you say to crack it open?
Honestly, the biggest thing that I would try to do, and this is a thing that I, in times of conflict and stuff like that, the very first thing before I even speak is being really present in my body in a certain place. If I know that a person tends to run a certain way with their energy, if I have enough insight in that moment to know, like, okay, this person is in this space emotionally, then there's certain things that I'm doing with different points of my body or in my breathing to try to match that, to help alchemize what's going on. So in other words, the best way to maybe not have a conflict is to cut it off before it even starts. And that can maybe be, if I can start a certain resonance, a certain sound in my body, then maybe he might be able to pick up that frequency. So before I even engage him in conversation, that would be the first thing I would be doing.
You begin to prepare by being the frequency that you need.
Yes. And he may not be able to be in this place to receive that, or, and so then you have to move accordingly. That starts a whole nother thing. But that would be the very first thing, is where am I at in my body, and what do I have going on to even try to diffuse it before it becomes a thing, even in the conversation.
I'll just add to that. Like, I feel like I would ask perhaps these like larger questions, of like, well, what drives you? What gets you up in the morning? What is your purpose, do you feel, for being here? Like, what do you feel is your, reason for being on planet Earth in this human body? I think that would be regardless of which human being is answering that, I think that's always going to be an interesting conversation where you're connecting on more of a human and a spiritual level, regardless of all this stuff. And it doesn't mean you have to support or condone or any, you're just
it's not about
putting
that.
it out there as a human interaction. And then I try to look at it recently, especially with all the, just the almost like it just keeps going up and up and up with the chaos and the, just the dismantlement of the old world, basically, we're watching crumble in front of our very eyes. And it's challenging, obviously, but I've found for myself, at least, what helps, and this would apply to a conversation with anybody, is I'll just keep zooming out. And it's that metaphor I learned when I was training in transcendental meditation, where it's just like, you can imagine kind of like either that you're sinking to the depths of this ocean, and the further you go, the darker it gets, the quieter it gets. And the commotion that's on that center, like there could be a tsunami and a crazy amount of stuff happening on the surface, but the deeper that you can go, the quieter and the calmer, and it doesn't matter even what's happening on that surface anymore, because you're at such a depth of yourself and of the void of reality, which is actually a beautiful and peaceful place. Then you sit in that, and then you can come at a situation from such neutrality. But then if you can look at it on the opposite end, like you're a balloon floating above a traffic scene, perhaps, and there's traffic and chaos below you, and you're looking down, and you can also start to, at least for me, I'm like, well, if you take the idea that we all come from the same source of creation, that singularity that then wanted to experience itself, so now we're all reflections of that. You can, as crazy as this might be to comprehend with the mind, the worst and most terrible atrocities that we see are still a creation of source, because it exists. And if it exists, it's a creation of source, because everything is from source. So there's, for some crazy reason that our minds might not be able to comprehend, that evil or that these horrible things that I don't like seeing, no one likes to see, I don't condone it, but it's there. It means it is there for a reason, and people like Putin exist for a reason. I don't have to like them or agree with them, but they're there to create contrast. You can't have good without evil.
Okay.
The concept of
now I'm with you.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so with that higher perspective of contrast, of light and dark, and the duality of reality, there's this, what's going on with these antagonists, you could call them, the bad guys in the story, is they're pushing the heroes to this next level of evolution. And so it's forcing us to come together in conversations like this and podcasts like this, where we can try to figure out, okay, well, how the heck would you have a conversation with a Putin character, as a great example, Bill? And I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's challenging, right?
So help me make sure I've got this right. So I'm just tracking here. So the first thing is to match the energy. And there's a whole, that's a huge thing to unpack right now. But as a musician, I get that, because you got to read the room.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm feeling that kind of a inflection on it. So, but I've never done it at the level that you're suggesting, Shophar, which is actually to bring that make that more consciously a part of what I'm reflecting in the moment. Right. So I got that. And then to zoom out to a place where I can say, as an observer, there's Bill, there's Putin in the room, and we see these pictures all the time, right? Blinken was just in, where was he? In Turkey, right? So there's you see these leadership pictures all the time, right? And sometimes it looks like they're getting along, and sometimes it looks like it's really weird. But so once you're in the room, you start to zoom out and recognize the kind of unity consciousness that, bad, good, or otherwise, brings a contrast to an opportunity for transformation. Right?
This is my current understanding, Bill. And
right. I'm going with it because,
I don't pretend to know that that's the quote unquote right answer. That's just kind of like what my intuition at this moment is saying. But it's always evolving, because
I'm with you. I want to make sure I'm on the same page here.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So now the stage is set, right? Now what?
Outer space.
Right? I mean, do you offer Vladimir a joint? Seriously.
Okay, that's the best idea we've had so far, I think.
Yeah. We've been doing this a while, Shophar, and that's the best idea we've had. Get high with Vladimir Putin.
Well, I love some things that Chris said there too, especially about the kind of the nature of things, and the whole good and evil thing. And at the end of the day, I think also being okay with, like, you may not change that brother.
Yeah.
Like, he may very well still be who he's going to be when he leaves that room. I want to create a space within myself that possibility, this in this quantum realm where everything is possible, this multiverse, that by me having a frequency that is, loving and open and unconditional to him, that maybe he may find that and it may bust something open. And chances are that's not going to happen. And being okay with that too.
Yeah, I have a problem with outcomes. I want too many of them.
And that's okay, right? Because you're not at all alone in that category, Bill. Like, it takes effort. That's a major program that we have to work through, is this need to know and understand everything and have an answer for everything. And it's just the vastness of reality is kind of, again, what game would you want to play where you already know every possible outcome and answer? It's so boring. It's just
I'm giving that up to AI because, I mean, seriously, if AI gets good at it, we won't have to know the answers, like the mental ones, and we can focus on the heart.
Yeah.
It'll free us
up. In some
regards,
it's awesome, for sure. Yeah.
Which I think is really important. Guy I was talking to, I'm not in any way an AI expert, but the guy I was talking to about this, who's been on podcasts with me before, stuff like that, Dr. Kim Soles. He's at U of Alberta, I think. So he's up north there.
With me.
Likes to say that when AI frees us, guess who will be the ones in charge? It won't be the operational business leaders. It won't be like all that stuff that's the way that commerce and the world works will be done. And what will be left are people who are good at, or the people who are left will be the ones who can lead by metaphor, can lead by art, can lead by music, can lead by deep spiritual inspiration. Like, that will be the next leadership group.
Wow.
Right. And Dr. Soles is pretty cool on this stuff. I mean, he's been thinking about it a lot longer and harder than I have. But I love that, because that means that right now, like Chris, right now, the work that you're doing, Shophar, right now, the work that you're doing is laying the groundwork for what it will look like to lead in that place after all the BS of the Age of Enlightenment and the age of the industrial age and the post-industrial age and the technological age all goes away, opening the way for the age of Aquarius and for the people who can lead in that space may be the reason for all this conflict right now.
I love it.
I don't know. I don't feel ready for that.
Well,
I mean, I've got a role, but I don't feel like
big changes, right? Like, we're never really ready. But I think that's a good point, Bill. It's interesting. I hadn't thought about it in that way, but I've heard something similar. I was the other day I heard on a podcast another idea of what our future, maybe on a political level, could look like, and it would be pretty much the exact opposite. In terms of the power structure we have today, whereas it's a pyramid scheme. The whole world basically operates on a pyramid scheme, and what we might be moving into, or a possibility of what that could look like, because we are still, globally connected at this point. So we still got to figure out a way that we're going to still work together collectively on this planet. But it looks like we'll also work in more of an inverse pyramid. Can I do that? Effect?
Yeah.
And what that would actually look like is the most amount of power funnels down to the local population, because who's going to know how to best manage your neighbors is going to be the person that lives in the neighborhood, right? And every solution and issue can be addressed on a local level, because environment, all this stuff completely plays out differently. Based off of, like, you can't apply one solution to somebody in New Zealand and think it's going to apply exactly the same in Switzerland or something like that. So everything gets funneled down to the local. So basically you kind of have these local governments that likely have the most amount of control. And then the people that are more maybe representing your country are doing it because we need some form of representation. That's important. We all like that, but they don't actually like dictate things. They don't like structure to mass amounts of degrees of what we're allowed to do, say things, all that stuff. That funnels down to your local level. And then you get to base your local culture on wherever it feels best for you to live, really. with the people that resonate the most with you. I don't like that. It's interesting.
Does that have any grounding in like ancient civilization?
Shophar, what do you think?
What was the question again? If it's grounded in,
like, is there any precedent for that in ancient civilizations that might?
Any examples? You mean?
Yeah, any examples?
I can't.
I can't go back that far. So.
Yeah, I can't think of any offhand. Maybe societies that were maybe more matriarchal, or in the Satya Yuga, when we were in an enlightened state. I think since we've been kind of on the downward turn, Kali Yuga, consciousness kind of been at this level that it's been at. There's not probably a lot of examples because we've been working through this polarity thing, and not, and it hasn't been easy for us.
I've heard though that there are these smaller little quote unquote breakaway, I won't even say civilizations, more breakaway groups perhaps, that have usually been able to go back to those ancient ways of living. And then usually in history you read about them. Those were maybe the witches that were burned, or those were the, like when the Romans first came to Great Britain, the pagans, I believe, or the Druids, I think were the ones. And the Druids they had that ancient magical wisdom from Egypt, and the Romans were the ones that tried to did hunt that out, beat that out, and whatnot. So I think there's smaller little groups that have been able to but it has to, for the last, it seems, however many thousands of years, I can't quite remember for the last Yuga cycle. Is it 2,500 for each cycle? I forget what it is, Shophar. Do you remember the amount? I can't.
I've heard so many conflicting things.
That's true too, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things, because it's probably like, who knows really anyway.
Right.
Nobody was here.
Very valid point.
Right.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
But saying
for me, I think it's just interesting. I like listening to stuff like that just because it expands the consciousness, but to take it as proof, I don't know.
But it resonates. It makes, why wouldn't cycles of consciousness exist? And it I don't know, it does feel right to me. And it so you're absolutely right. It's been quite a time that we haven't had a lot of examples, but some of the examples could include, even in ancient Egypt, when you have these, was it the 42 laws of Ma'at, the M-A-A-T? And you look at these 42 laws, these are universal laws of life, existence in general in the universe. And that's where the 10 Commandments were based off of later on, thousands and thousands of years later, in other religious texts and stuff. And you start to look at that and you're like, well, that sounds like a pretty solid foundation. You read that. I'm like, if everyone was following those principles, I think we'd be doing pretty okay. So you can see remnants, I think, of when we likely did live that way.
Chris, for a non-religious guy, I've watched as our conversations have become more and more grounded in ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
And particularly the Bible. However, this cycle thing, isn't that a Hindu cycle thing where every 60,000 or something we jump off? What's the legend? Is it Brahma who sits there, and when he opens his eyes, the universe comes into being, and he closes his eyes, and it's the cycles are, there's some 240,000 is a number in there. I am not the expert, people, so
there's different cycles within cycles of the Yuga cycles. There's long ones that literally go for hundreds of thousands of years, and then there's short ones that you can break down even to a single day. So there's just cycles it's fractal, like everything, right?
And here we are, trying to figure out how to make it all work within 80 years or whatever the average lifespan is right now. It's okay.
Hold on, that brought up something I had to just quickly mention. Lifespan. That's another program. Look into the ancient Egyptians' kings list and the Sumerians that even come before that's debatable. But anyway, ancient civilization like the Sumerians or the Egyptians have these kings lists where they are documenting these kings living for hundreds and thousands of years. And this seems to, again, comes up in books in texts like the Bible as well. You have the Nephilim, you have these other beings that they describe in these ancient texts that are absolutely living for thousands, hundreds of years, if not thousands. So I also believe that with these cycles, they affect our age as well. So now that we've kind of gone from the bottom of the consciousness cycle, and we're going back up into this golden age, or these higher stages of frequency and light and consciousness, will come back into that and in those ways that we were at one point doing well back in the past. So age is going to be, I think we'll live longer and longer, I believe. I don't think this 80-year, I think that's, anyway, I have a whole other set of opinions on that. But I really, there's been some, I've listened to whistleblowers from some government programs, CIA and stuff like that, have talked about experiments that have been done where they've watched people regress their age just because they've shifted their mind and made them believe they went back to their old place. They like recreated their childhood, setting and made them live there for 6 months. And in those 6 months, their age like regressed because it's all a construct of the mind. So anyway, that's another whole tangent.
So you said something a while ago about that made me think macro micro. So I know I started with a one-to-one with a kind of impossible situation as an example, but what about the one-to-ones that we have with our significant others? How can we change those? Because that's where we really have influence, right? That's where we can really do things. Influence and be influenced by. What's our way forward there?
What do you think, Shophar? I want to hear your thoughts.
Wow. So if you're a significant other, so definitely that process that I said, I think Chris outlined as well, inshallah, as our Muslim sisters and brothers would say, God willing, Allah willing, it works with them. It may not work with Putin, but
right.
If it's not working with them, you might have a problem, and so, just being able to, again, that voice, introspection, breath, and embodiment, really create a space and place where introspection can happen to see when I'm bringing my shit to the table, when she's bringing hers or they're bringing theirs, and then being able to communicate and work through these things and the shadow part of ourselves. I see a lot in this quote unquote spiritual communities. There's a lot of what I'd like to think of as kind of like spiritual bypass sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think relating is the perfect place to make us have to be, boots on the ground and really show up for ourselves and for the other.
It's hard work.
Yes.
I want to do it. I love my wife. I want to do the work. But in many ways, it's an adventure without a map. Right. And there's a lot of people selling maps out there.
Right.
But I want experience, right?
Yeah, and something to that, what you made me think of, tying back into ancient Kemet, they like to use as for Horus or Heru, they like to use the falcon head. You see the falcon used a lot. A peregrine falcon can fly from British Columbia going up there somewhere where you're at, Chris, in Canada, right? They can fly from all the way from Canada all the way down to Argentina, no maps. And then back from Argentina back up to Canada. So what am I getting at? To the same nesting grounds. The map is in us, but somehow we get into these map salespeople, and thinking that if the breath will bring us back to that you have the map inside of you.
That's so awesome, Shophar. I love that because for me, that's really what it kind of all comes down to is, especially in this age that we're leaving, which was an age of materialism. Part of materialism is that all these answers are always outside of yourself. You have to go to school to learn how to be a human being or to be a better version of yourself. And while there's nothing wrong with education, I love learning, it's obvious that all these answers are always in ourselves. And there's so many ways that we get pulled out of that through natural ways in our society. Everything is all kind of sold to us as an exterior solution. The answers are never look within yourself unless you're on a spiritual journey of some kind, because that's typically always the answer is go within yourself. It's always, the answer is always within yourself. So I love that. And Bill, just one thought that I wanted to throw in there too, is that with these conversations, my friend, this morning, I was just chatting with her, and she wants to have a challenging conversation with a man in her life. And she's like, okay, I'm thinking about maybe approaching it this way with this sort of a strategy. And I was like, look, nothing wrong with that at all. And that's usually how I went through those conversations in my past. And what I'm trying to do, when I'm doing my my best at trying to do right now is to have those conversations and lead with the heart and not overthink and overplan those conversations and over strategize, because once again that means then the brain's leading, and I'm really starting to re think how I think. Why am I always using the brain when the heart, as we know, even scientifically, is another brain, literally has neurons, all neural pathways, etc. And it actually thinks faster than your brain, believe it or not, and that's been measured too. And so getting more into the heart and leading these conversations from that heart, which is why I think, Bill, and correct me if I'm wrong, but have you done a plant medicine with your wife and then had these conversations, or was it what, I can't remember, but I remember that you told me one story that really stuck with me, and I thought that was just like the most beautiful way to like get more into your heart. It could be drinking cacao is a great way too. That's a heart based, beautiful medicine there too, and then have that conversation, but it's all coming from the heart instead.
Yeah, Rebecca and I do regular conversations with cannabis, but I'm really curious how that works with other psychedelics as well. Just haven't gone there. And I'm really curious, like Chris, you brought up the kinds of the difference in conversations that can happen with a group of men who are clothed versus naked. It's like changing it up, right? And Shophar, S.E.X, you've got some tools on this, that can change the nature of those conversations. And all of this at least suggests to me that while we can prepare, we got to be free of the outcome, right? And I'm wishing right now that I'd had a chance to work with you specifically on this Shophar. Can you give us any examples about how that preparation looks in the work that you do?
So definitely, definitely, I'd love to share that. So for me, it's like, especially as a male gendered being, or in the masculine, is being in my dick, being in my penis. So my awareness as I'm speaking, or my awareness when Putin or my lady walks in the room, is to check in with that intelligence down there. I mean, this is the way that consciousness comes to the planet, is through our balls. And so to really feel them in these different situations, just like the heart has an intelligence, our lingam, our penis, our dick, whatever we want to call it. And each one of those names people like them, or they can be triggering too. Like dick may sound vulgar to one person, where lingam sounds too, so please, whatever one resonates with you, use that one for and hear me. Don't let what I'm saying, if one word resonates to you as vulgar, translate that over to the other word, so you can still hear what I'm saying. And I'm talking to the people, through time and space, that not you two. But yeah, being present in our bodies to that level and that degree, that changes so much especially when dealing with the feminine, or dealing with a female in her womb space. If you can feel her and she can feel that you feel her, because there's a place on your dick that corresponds to your heart. So I like to be in that place in my dick, with my consciousness there as I'm speaking to her, and that will let her know that I'm hearing her on a level that has nothing to do with this thing.
Yeah, with nothing to do with the head.
Right. But with the other head.
With the other head. You did it, man. Checks in the mail. You went right for it.
I love that. And I'm so glad you went there, because that's literally part of the teachings that we're working on here in British Columbia. And it's so synchronistic and gratifying to hear that is, because that's why we do it naked, because we got to get back into all of the parts of our body, which do include the sexual organs. And those organs they are the least paid attention to, the most ignored, the most amount of shame stored there. I've always had pretty healthy body image, and I couldn't believe the amounts of shame that were just like literally shaking off of my body every time I would go out with my buddies, and we'd do a little polar dip, get naked, skinny dip, polar dip, and then do some breath work. And I was amazed at how much shame I had. So I can't even imagine people that actually had more body image issues. And many men do. Lots of men do. It is not just for women. It's for everyone. So that's amazing.
Right?
Sorry?
It's exacerbated right now with the gender fluidity that exists in our world. It's changing that whole conversation.
Oh yeah, big time.
Like, Shophar, how do you work with a, a male gendered individual who's transitioning to become female, or who's gender affirming and transitioning to not be male or female? Like, that's a whole additional conversation that exists now.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's reminding us with these brave souls that have taken on those bodies and taken on those personas to remind us that the highest part of our being is androgyny, right? Now, when we have this earthly experience, the coin is either heads or tails, or that third side that the coin spins on. That we don't usually talk about. It's like heads or tails, and a lot of times we forget that other side, the third side of the coin. So we've been tricked into a zeros and ones system matrix or whatever, when really it was a three-sided system in the first place. So working with these people is just what I found, because we have worked with people who have already fully transitioned, gay, bisexual, and really at the end of the day, is being able to feel that core channel. Not the Ida or the Pingala, the two thieves that steal from Jesus being on the cross, right? But being able to be in the middle, and people will be able to feel that's where you're at.
Is that
I gotta add in? Sorry, go ahead.
Is that a balance or a balancing act, or is that more of an embracing act?
I don't know how you would put that. Yeah, what would you say, Chris?
I get more of a more of a both. I feel like it's both. It's balancing and it's embracing. It's embracing that it's all of the things that that's the funny thing. It's like this high idea of like you're saying, this binary view. Well, if it's this, then it can't be that. I'm like, well, can it be all?
That's not working.
Yeah, well, we're moving into higher dimensions of reality, and the way I kind of look at that is not when you move from the third to the fourth dimension, you don't get rid of the third dimension, you include it, and you're just adding more information now in the fourth, but they've housed all of the other dimensions within that. So you kind of like can't throw it all out, so to speak, like the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. And I like to say, like, choose your own adventure. You've come into this body, and whatever energy is speaking to you, because it's putting the power back in that person. So if you're identifying a lot with the masculine energy, and ultimately it is energy, we'll get into physical mechanics that involve the penis and things like that. So it might help if you have that same genitalia. Not necessary though. It's still an energy at the end of it all. And so it's all about your intention and like just that open invitation to then choose which one is speaking to you in that moment, and to not have to maybe put like a cap on it either. So really it's kind of just empowering them to make their own, choose your own adventure, make your own decision.
Sorry, I interrupted you, brother. You had something.
Well, I'd like to say the coin is spinning,
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
That's so
yeah. Why does it need to stop?
And I think that's why we're moving into the, I watched this talk where it was a WombYn, a woman talking to different levels of understanding, explaining what a quantum computer is. And so by the time she got to like the teenager, where I already couldn't follow. But but I love what she said to the elementary kid, and she gave the example of the quarter, and that a quantum computer is not head or tails. It's actually the coin is spinning.
Sees all outcome at the same time, which is like, that's the quantum possibility. It's not binary anymore. It can't be a 1 or a 0. It can be 1 and 0 and I think other possibilities. I forget exactly how it's broken down. It's
superposition.
Right, that's a superposition.
Yeah.
Shoot me the link on that, because I would love to share that quantum computing link.
I'll send it to you
in the show notes so people can check that out and see how far we go. My mind starts to check out very early on. Like I make it through the elementary stuff and then I'm just like gone. But I know that we'll get better as our frame of references expand as we continue spinning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's also just that's the way we've been raised, and when you have to acknowledge, like, it's not to downplay our abilities because we have infinite capacity, but we are working against a lot of programming in this entire life of ours that has told us reality is one way, And now we're realizing it's a very different situation, and that, you know, it takes time. So that's why the mind sometimes gets like, oh my God, what is he talking about?
Right.
The head explodes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So words of wisdom. Let's get some words of wisdom here. Like the one thing, I'll pick a question. Let's see. Random question. One thing today that, if you're listening to this, that you can do to start the process. Keep spinning.
Mm. Hmm.
What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I'm trying to answer that for myself. Um, the thing that comes to me is like, open your eyes, Bill. Just see what's really there, not what's presenting, but what's behind that. What's behind what you say? It's like that zoom out thing you were talking about, Chris. So maybe that's mine. So open your eyes, Bill, and maybe shut your mouth.
Actually, I got to add something then, Bill, because I was listening to one of the aspects of sound healing that is the most neglected is that the sound is very important, but equal to that sound, that of equal importance is the silence after the sound and the space in between the sound. So when you said like maybe look and don't speak, it's like a reminder to, and I'm really actually trying to embody this more, is where's the silence in my day? Where's the quiet contemplation moment where I'm not watching something, listening to something, watching something on my computer? That's, I think, something we are still missing a bit. And maybe in that silence, we can come into more of ourselves, perhaps.
I like that. Breathing in both of your.
Yeah, me too.
I would say just to add in there is so in English the word no, K, which should be canal or canal, no, but we throw that K on there for some reason. That's silent. It's so weird. But KNOW, and if you take off the K, you have the word now. So in order to know, we have to be in the now. So the last thing I'll say on that is between first breath being the first breath that you took after coming out your mom's womb, and last breath, whenever that last breath is going to be, but you have the now breath.
There's no time. Time past, present, or past and future don't exist. There's literally only the present moment. I love that. Yeah, and breathe it in, right? And I would say, especially, and this is for any being, but I will invite the men that are listening to this to take extra attention to it. Is breath work. Breathing is one of the more amazing tools, I think, that you can literally. It's right here. It's free. It's accessible, obviously. To start bringing into your life, into maybe a daily or weekly practice to do. Name a thing, anything. Could be to relieve an anxiety, could be to energize your body, could be to do with your partner to deepen your connection, could be to do with your business partner to get more ideas. But that breath work and that breathing in a conscious way, I think that's a huge thing. Just to start that alone would be a massive, massive thing to do. And what's breath in Latin? Spiritus. And that translates to spirit. Your soul and spirit literally resides in the breath.
Yeah, a couple of cultures have that same concept because in ancient Hebrew, they used the word ruach, and ruach meant wind, it meant spirit, and it also meant breath. So we see, like what you just said, Chris, we see a couple of different ancient cultures, they had this connection with breath being a spirit. And if that's the case, then, you know, a lot of times I think when we say that we think of something being spiritual, it becomes this, oh,
yeah.
And like you just said, let's ground it in the third dimension. Spiritual is breathing. That's a different. See, that's something for us to sit with and really unpack. Is like, because even as I'm saying, and I've been saying this but there's still that tendency to want to go somewhere with harps and angels. No, breath work is spiritual.
And it's so, like, Shophar, I love how you share that because it's so true. I think, and you mentioned a little earlier, spiritual bypassing, and that's something I experience a lot in my 8, 9 years now of like conscious spiritual pursuit, knowledge, research, etc. And I find that happens a lot in this world that we're in. And what we're, I think, moving through now is realizing, like, yeah, wait, when we talk about this whole spiritual realm and higher dimensions, it a lot of us kind of feel like it's this otherworldly, out of our reach, harps and angels,
Yeah, it's out
unicorns. There. It's out there. It's not tangible. It's not this. I'm like, no, all of it is literally within our arm's reach right now, and we can access that through a lot of these different things. And one of the biggest modalities is that breath work. It's not the only one. There's many, many, many others, but breath work is just such a great one. So you're absolutely right. And so interesting with my research into all these different ancient cultures, it's permeates through all of them. All of them talk about these same truths. All of them. They're so similar. And when you start to really narrow it all down, you're like, yeah, they're all saying the same thing.
I don't know. I'm not a comparative religion expert here, but Jesus was the dude who said the kingdom of God is within you.
Yes.
And then everybody who's Christian spent the rest of whatever 2,500 years since looking for it elsewhere.
He's just saying what Thoth is saying and what all these other, Buddha and everyone else. That's
right.
A mirror of him. And he's just his unique expression of the same information, right?
So go within, breathe. And if you need any help, reach out. We're here for you. I'm going to I'll link you in, of course, in the show notes.
Yes.
Chris, you're in there. I mean, we can help. We have modalities. We can do this. We're not the only way, but we have some ways for you to be able to connect with what's inside you.
And Shophar, I mean, I'd love to hear. Please feel free to share if you've got any upcoming events or things that people can link up with you, because I obviously you've got so much to share, and I would encourage everyone watching and listening to check out Shophar and his magic, because I'm interested and I'd love to learn more.
I got another reason to come to Southern California, Chris.
The list is already through the roof, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. If you want to connect, I have a book, Sacred Orgasmic Living, S.O.L, Sacred Orgasmic Living. So I'll send that link to Bill. For those in Southern California, we have the men's group, the first Wednesday at Freshly Faded Barbershop. Shout out to Derek. And let me see. And on not this Saturday, but the following Saturday at Solar Yoga and Encinitas, my lady, is a very powerful being. That would be a great interview for you all too, if you're ever interested talking to Kirti. But she has a workshop at Solar Yoga. And I'll send the link to you for that. And I don't want to inundate you. Like, I have a lot of things going on, so I don't like doing like a smorgasbord commercial. If you resonate and you want to know more, just reach out.
Yeah, you got your website. Do you have a website, Shophar?
I do. I have FoSHo Energy Work. So FoSHO for show, or for show in Chinese is Buddha hands. With the idea being that your enlightenment is in your hands. You are the Buddha that has that. So FoSHo Energy Work, and also have a YouTube channel of the same name.
I'll make the links. People will get this. We'll probably drop in a couple of weeks. So the yoga workshop may have passed, but I still want to get your ladies on there so that, because, we have multiple genders listening to this.
Okay.
Right.
Perhaps beings that aren't even human.
And perhaps, who knows where the radio signals will.
Are extraterrestrials tuning into this?
Are there artificial intelligences who are looking for help?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
I love it.
What's going on Earth these days? We got to check in down there.
Man, we are the Disneyland of the galaxy, from what I've heard from some interesting interviews I've watched. We are a heck of a reality TV show. I'll tell you that. Can't write better drama.
South Park did an episode on that, actually, and it was pretty good.
Man, they are on it. South Park, they're great. Oh wow. Brilliant.
Thanks for the fun, my brothers. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for giving us your time. Tell everybody at the men's group I miss them, and I look forward to getting back down there.
When it aligns and flows, it'll be good. It's always the perfect time, as you know. It'll be the perfect time.
Amen.
Thank you both. It was a pleasure meeting you, Chris, and good to reconnect with you, Bill.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Shophar. Appreciate you. Thank you.
And
thank you
both to everyone. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Aho, and peace. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.